I know that, on this show, there's been a couple times where we've riffed on Dave Ramsey, and I just want Dave Ramsey to know we don't hate you. Actually, Dave Ramsey got me out of debt. Yeah. I am completely debt free. Yeah. And I know that Dave Ramsey did the same for you. Yeah. So starting from like your lowest of lows, can you take us through your financial journey and how Dave Ramsey kind of helped you?
We grew up, me and my mother grew up on welfare, full on lining up for food to get whatever we could, which is ironic because I was born in the Soviet Union and we would line up for rations there. So here we go from the Soviet Union lining up for rations to then like coming to America. My dad leaves and we're on welfare. I don't think we had food stamps. At least I don't remember us having food stamps. It was just welfare. And then we'd go and line up for different places for food. So I grew up like poverty, right? And I don't remember ever going without food, but I remember having to line up to get free food. Like it wasn't just always there. And by the time I got married, we were kind of like my mom and me were kind of like middle class, I guess you could say. So we get married, we move out, and we go on another vacation on our 1-year anniversary. Just like totally. I was the one pushing this. My wife is very frugal, but I was like, yeah, on another cruise, like 2 cruises in a row, which is like in hindsight, like what? Like I would never go on a cruise now, right? Like
not in 2021,
right? It's a stupid vacation in hindsight. So I remember going on a cruise a year into being married, putting it on our credit cards, broke. And not really being able to enjoy the cruise because I know when we come back, I got all this debt. I'm dealing with all these different situations. And what led after that is we discovered, we actually went through Crown Financial first, which is the guy who mentored Dave Ramsey, created a program called Crown Financial. I don't remember his name right now. But then we discovered Dave Ramsey. And so this is after this cruise. And prior to that, I had co-signed on a condo with my mom, and she let it go into foreclosure. So I moved out. She lets it go into foreclosure. The HOAs go to collection. That like she just stopped paying it, right? And this is in the middle of like the housing crisis. Like this is like 06, 07, 08, right? Like right as the market crashed. So she just stopped paying it. So I co-signed on this thing. So I'm like moved out at this point. We're not taking vacations on our credit cards, like working the Dave Ramsey baby steps. We had our baby emergency fund. We're a couple months in the process, and I kept getting these notices, totally my fault, for the HOA. It was like $1,200 in HOA because like $100 she stopped paying it, so it added $1,200. That compounded to like $5,000 with fees, and they kept sending me notices like, hey, there's a judgment again. There's like, go to court. Then there's a judgment again, right? And I didn't go because they had my last name misspelled on the paperwork. So I'm sitting here thinking like, this isn't me. Like, you guys don't got me. Like, whatever. I didn't realize that they had my social security number.
Yeah, that matches.
Right? So the name's misspelled, but whatever. So I just ignored it. Like, I was like, well, this isn't my debt. Like, this is my mom. Like, I've been moved out, right? Like, I'm trying to justify it in my head. So this $1,200 debt rolls into a $5,000 debt. And I wake up one day. Thankfully, we had just paid our rent. I wake up one day. We're a couple months in the process. We got some good momentum going. And my wife calls me, and she's like, hey, our accounts are levied. And I was like, what does that mean? She's like, all the money from our accounts is taken out. I can't use the debit card, and we have no money. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah. So then I'm like, that's crazy. Thankfully, we just paid the rent. So then start figuring out what was going on, and I figured out that this old debt called the bank, got all the money from our account,
wiped
it, and this is like the second or the third of the month. So I'm like, holy smokes, right? And again, thankfully, we had just paid our rent. We have no money. And I start the process of like, how do I deal with this? Call the collections people. This is what you owe. think we still owed like another $3,000 on it. We didn't have a ton of money in our account. We had a $1,000 emergency fund, and like whatever our budget was, maybe like another $1,000 or $1,500. So I start the process. I go down this whole thing. In the process, I check my own credit, and I find out when my mom let that place go into foreclosure, the first mortgage was foreclosed on, like the big one. But there was another $60,000 second mortgage that was on my credit, and I just owed it. So now I'm like, holy moly, like I owe this $3,000. I owe all my other student loans, my car notes. My accounts are levied, and I owe another $60,000 on the second mortgage that didn't go into a foreclosure. It's just on my credit. This is like 3 or 4 years after my mom's out of the place now, or 2 years. I don't remember the timeline. And I was like, man, this is bad. Like, this is really bad. So I literally was looking at bankruptcy. I was like, man, I might have to file. Like, there's no way. Like, this is like over $100,000 of debt, right? And I start doing research and finding stuff out. And I was listening to Dave Ramsey at the time. We didn't even go through his program. Like, we literally just read what the baby steps were and just listened. That's how broke we were. We couldn't even go to the program.
Can't afford financial peace.
Can't even financial
like bootlegging it.
We're listening to the podcast every day. We're working the baby steps. And listening to his show, he talked about how to settle with creditors. And so I remember listening to it. And because this was an older debt, it's like a 4 or 5 year old debt, they would call. And no, I called them. I found them, called them. And I said, look, this is old. This is going to fall off my credit in 2 or 3 years anyway. I have $1,000 for you. And I'll settle this $60,000 worth of debt for $1,000.
$60,000 for $1,000.
For $1,000.
And just laugh, or they hang up?
They were like, let us get back to you. So call me back a couple of days later, and they're like, hey, we'll accept it.
No.
Yeah. This is a guy overseas. So at this point, the debt, the $60,000 had been sold multiple times. So they're getting it for pennies on the dollar. They're like, whatever, like we'll take it, you know? So I was like, write at the paperwork. I followed all the steps, write the paperwork, sent them a cashier's check, and I settled that $60,000 of debt for $1,000. The ironic part is that $1,200 of HOAs that my mom didn't pay, I had to pay the full $5,000 on that. They knew they had me. Mm-hmm. And so settled that, paid off that. 18 months later, we were, plus the other 40 or $45,000 of debt we had. 18 months later, we're completely debt free, and everything turned around. We were able to save up a 6-month emergency fund. I got a better job. In the process of doing this, in the process of that moment, I did something I'd never which is a feature sale. So rappers charge for features. I had never done this before, and I wasn't that big. I maybe had like a couple thousand followers, 5,000 followers at the most.
You're just so I can clarify. You're saying like you feature in someone's song?
Yes.
Okay.
So I say, hey, I'm doing this feature sale, and if you guys want me on your song, this would be the time to get me on your song. Reach out to me. I don't remember the system that I had. This is 2010, maybe 2011. I don't remember what it was. Somewhere in that ballpark, 2011, I think. 2010. I don't remember, but did this feature sale. I made $3,000 in a week. I had never made that kind of money before. So hitting rock bottom pushed me to do something I'd never done anymore, because we really just needed money for food. Like, we had no food money. And I did that feature sale, and that unlocked something in me to say, oh, like what I have is valuable. I have a skill set. I have influence. I can monetize this. And it completely changed the trajectory of how I saw money, how I saw my own value as a creative, what was possible.
Hey y'all, we hope you loved this conversation. Here at Young Married Christian, we are on a mission to see a gospel-centered home made available for every single child in the foster care system. There are 400,000 kids in the foster care system, and there are 400,000 churches in America. Wow. That is crazy. This is absolutely a solvable problem, and we want to be a part of it. If you want to join us in that mission, text the word freedom to 833-370-1610.
833-370-1610. 833-370-1610.
I just did it.
And another thing you can do that is really helpful is to smash the like button on this video.
Smash it like Satan's face. Crush it like it's Lucifer's head.
It really helps us a ton, so smash that like button, subscribe to this channel.
That's it.
Smash the like button on this video.